Welcome to the Gavel. I'm Terry Ikumi. Let's get right into it, beginning with the Senate. And what a week it was at the Senate. The Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges has officially dismissed the sexual harassment petition filed by the senator representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Senator Natasha Akpotudwagan, against the Senate President Godswill Akpabio, and adjourned the case sine die. Chairman of the committee, Senator Nedai Maswin, made the declaration when counsel to the petitioner, Dr. Abiola Akindeafolabi, appeared before the Senate Ethics Committee accompanied by former Minister of Education, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, who alleged bias and lack of fair hearing by the Senate Committee. The situation eventually got out of hand and degenerated into name-calling and use of abusive language. But that's not all. The Southeast Caucus of the Senate staged a walkout after the Senate voted against a motion to immortalize Professor Humphrey Nwosu, who was chairman of the Electoral Commission in the 1993 presidential election. Take a listen.
About 3 weeks into the suspension of the senator representing Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akpotudwagan, counsel to the petitioner, in company of the former Minister of Education, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, appeared before the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions. During the session, there was an initial hiccup as the council called for the recusal of the committee chairman, citing bias.
Until when we read that the rule of this house and that constitution, that's when we can say that we have fair hearing and justice in this regard. In this regard, what the petitioner had said is that based on that press briefing, whether it was before Natasha was sent out of the National Assembly or not, gives an impression that the chairman of the committee has a particular understanding of this issue and could be said to be biased.
The chairman immediately defended his earlier comment, explaining why it was pertinent to dismiss the case.
Because you are a learned counsel. Submit a case, submit your own petition to court and don't sign it. They will throw it out. Whether you use the word dead on arrival or not, they will throw it out. We are lawyers here, so we understand that. In any case, from the position that I can see you are taking, it means the whole Senate is biased. Because the whole Senate witnessed what happened on the floor. They witnessed it. And so, I don't know what other committee you're going to now constitute that is not aware of what has been going on.
Not long after, tensions escalated as a heated exchange erupted between Dr. Obi Ezekwesili and the Senate Minority Whip, Senator Peter Wamboyi.
I will not take it. That is why you can never be here. People like you can never be here. People like you can never be here. How can you be? How can you be of you? You are a hooligan. You insult me. And you say I should keep my mouth shut. Who are you, Professor? Who are you? Are you the presiding officer? Who are you? I asked to be put on court. And you refuse.
The case is then adjourned indefinitely.
The petitioner said he would not speak to his petition because the Senate is biased, or I'm biased, or the committee is biased. 2, the respondent has just told us, and the papers are before you, that this case is before a competent court of law. Therefore, this committee will allow a court of law that will not be biased to handle this matter. Therefore, this matter is closed here at the Senate and is adjourned.
Meanwhile, as lawmakers reconvened for the last plenary of the week, the debate over immortalizing Professor Humphrey Nwosu took center stage as Senator Ayinaya Baribe presented his motion, which was shot down the previous day based on technicality.
Aware that his courageous defense of democratic electoral process during the 1993 presidential elections led to the famous June 12 which ultimately confirmed Alhaji MKO Abiola as the winner.
And I also want to remind us that Humphrey Nwosu was the chairman during a military regime. There was no way he would have announced a result with a gun placed on his head.
From this point, tensions began to rise as the chamber quickly became a battleground of conflicting opinions, with lawmakers locked in a heated back and forth.
General Sani Abacha, he said the reason he decided to order the detention of MKO Abiola was that MKO Abiola proclaimed himself as the winner of the election and therefore as president. It was on that basis Abiola was arrested and he died in detention. If Professor Nwosu had the courage, I emphasize courage as is being suggested here, to announce the winner and damn the consequences. After all, he who is not ready to die for something will end up dying for nothing. We cannot distort history in this Senate.
Today I speak as the senator representing the memory of MKO Abiola, and that we are even discussing this brings back the pain of the loss of an illustrious Nigerian from Ogun Central Senatorial District. To attempt to immortalize or honor anyone who was involved with the annulment of June 12 that led to the death of MKO Abiola is to undermine the insufficient recognition that has been given to him. It is indeed to also set a very bad precedent.
To stay here and not acknowledge that Humphrey was a fighter who stood his grounds against the military leadership to ensure that democracy was enthroned is most uncharitable. Some of the things I would have said have been taken by my colleagues, so I want to join those who believe that Humphrey Nwosu did a great job to enthrone democracy.
To immortalize him by naming the INEC headquarters in Abuja after him. Those in favor of this bill say aye. Those against say nay. Nay. The nays have it.
Angered by the outcome, the Southeast senators, led by Senator Baribe, staged a walkout and convened an emergency briefing with journalists.
All the elements that make up June 12, including the conduct of the election. And like we said, if there was no election, there would have been no June 12. So we can also use this opportunity that we're here addressing you to appeal to the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to honor the man who made sure that that election held, despite that it was done, and put elections in the consciousness of Nigerians, because that election was what led everybody else to now be doing subsequent elections.
Separately, the Senate debated a bill to amend the Electoral Act, canvassing for same-day elections to cut costs.
To amend the Electoral Act 2022 to provide for the participation of elected office holders and statutory delegates, provide for the schedule of election to hold on same day and reduce the period of campaign in election, and for other related matters 2025 second reading taken.
And speaking of bills, a lot of them scaled second reading in the House of Representatives, specifically Constitution Amendment bills. 111 of them scaled second reading. It was initially 113, but the House rescinded its decision on 2, the bill to remove immunity from the vice presidents, governors, and their deputies, as well as the bill to review the death penalty. The decision on these bills, according to the House, is to enable them conduct a more robust debate, considering that the 113 bills passed so far were done without a debate. Take a listen.
111 Constitution Amendment bills have scaled second reading in the House of Representatives. The bills cut across various sectors, including judicial reforms, electoral matters, security and policing, inclusive governance, legislature, and others. Some of the proposals include a bill for an act to alter the Constitution to provide for the establishment of state police and local government police. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to provide that general elections to the office of the President, state governors, National Assembly, state houses of assembly, and local government area councils be conducted simultaneously at the same time. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to provide for special seats for the physically challenged persons in Nigeria's federal, state, and local government areas and legislative houses. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to vest the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) with the power to conduct local government area council elections. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to separate the offices of the Attorney General of the Federation, Attorney General of a state from the offices of the Minister of Justice of the federal government and Commissioner for Justice of the government of a state. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to grant citizenship rights to spouses of women from Nigeria. Specify the minimum number of youth and women that may be appointed into specific offices, as well as bills to create Oke-Ogun State, Ijebu State and Ife-Ijesha State, Tiga State, Olu State, and Etiti State. By the third plenary session, the Majority Leader of the House moved for a rescission on 2 bills which scaled second reading the previous day.
A bill for an act to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended to qualify the immunity conferred on the President, remove the immunity conferred on the Vice President, the governors and their deputies, and the other is a bill for an act to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to review the penalties for certain capital offenses in alignment with relevant international best practices and for related matters. We're aware that the provisions of the bills require that the House will take a second look at it.
It's something that we have to debate later on in more detailed form. And I thank you for your understanding, the sponsors of the bill. They also understood that for now, we'll keep it until we debate later on in a more thorough, comprehensive form. Thank you.
Afterwards, more Constitution amendment bills were read for the second time. Some of the notable bills include a bill for an act to alter the Constitution to provide for the office of Prime Minister as head of government and the office of President as head of state, and to provide for a framework for the mode of election to the said offices. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to provide for specific seats for women in the national and state houses of assembly. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to reduce the lengthy period for the termination of pre-election petition matters and provide for the establishment of pre-election tribunals for pre-election matters, and regulate the process of suspending a member of the National Assembly from legislative duties. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to review the requirements that qualifies a person to be elected as President and Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, governors and deputy governor. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to review the status of the Federal Capital Territory as regards the election of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as well as bills for the creation of one state and Gobir State. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution to provide for stronger measures and checks for the sustenance of the autonomy of local government system in Nigeria.
We are aware that there are some flaws, there are some shortcomings as far as the operation of local government system is concerned in Nigeria, has been exemplified by the judgment of the Supreme Court. And that is all about the functionality of that local government. You can agree with me that for so many years now that we have joined back democracy, that the local government system is not working. And as a result of that, the House is working assiduously to ensure that local government works again. And that is why I, as a person, is proposing an alteration as far as Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution is concerned. And that is all about, when you look at what is happening in the local government system, there are caretaker committees here and there. There are interim committees here and there, instead of the democratically elected government or council. Because some governors are looking, or, cashing in on some loopholes in the Constitution. And these are the proposals we are trying to make before the National Assembly so that it will become a law, so that nobody goes into those loopholes to tamper with it.
Now, welcome back to the Gavel. Let's get a reaction from the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, on the Senate's refusal to approve the immortalization of former National Electoral Commission Chairman, Professor Humphrey Nwosu.
We did see senators from across the country, not just a particular part, who demanded that Professor Humphrey Nwosu, given the contributions he made to elections in 1993, be given special recognition. And some of the proposals include naming the INEC headquarters after him, amongst other demands of the senators who were moving the motion. I think on the first day, a bad signal was sent when this was not allowed to be taken, and then it was sad to see the division in the Senate regarding this issue. When some senators addressed the public outside of the Senate chambers, it was to deliver their message, and that message was quite clear. You did have a Professor Humphrey Nwosu who did not collude with the military and got to the point where he refused to cancel the elections. That in itself was an announcement of a result. So if they expected him to come out on that day and say the election was won by this person, then I think it's a little bit difficult to comprehend why this position is taken by some of the senators who opposed the motion. But I would say that because a lot of people who are in political office today were not part of the June 12 struggle, didn't understand the June 12 struggle, came into position without understanding how the current Fourth Republic evolved, how people died, how people were killed, how Professor Humphrey Nwosu was humiliated by the dictatorship of General Ibrahim Babangida. When people don't understand that, then they can take a position that discountenances the contributions of Professor Humphrey Nwosu. And I think it's really very sad for the country that you would have people take positions. I don't know for whatever reason, whether it's ethnic or not, but it was sad to see that motion was voted down by senators in the National Assembly. Well, to be very honest with you, watching the proceedings, I couldn't determine, and again, we have to find a way of getting the National Assembly to begin to have a division where there is no clear indication of how the voice has gone. And I was listening to those proceedings. It wasn't very clear to me whether it was the ayes or the nays that had it. So we need to begin to encourage the National Assembly to call for a division of votes when an issue becomes contentious, so that it becomes really transparent to everyone how the voting has happened. But for me, it seems to me very important that if people have made contribution to national development, like Professor Humphrey Nwosu has done, they should be honored. And there are people who have made almost infinitesimal contribution, or even not at all, to national development, who have not been honored in any way. If M.K. Abiola, who died in prison, would be honored by the National Assembly, National Stadium being named after him, and some other edifices being named after him, the man who conducted the elections, on the basis of which you have named M.K. Abiola to the National Stadium, why are you not honoring him? The Senate's motion was to get the president to go in that direction. The president, in his own stead, by his own motion, can take decisions on what he wants to do on this matter. And I would recommend that he proceeds to do so, because Professor Humphrey Nwosu was caught right at danger in the middle of a storm, and he weathered through it. If you look at the situation today, how much or how many elections have been conducted since Professor Humphrey Nwosu in this country that you have had the electoral umpire commended? Yes, Professor Tahiru Jega got good commendations, very good, and he deserved it. And I would say, of course, you probably need to name a monument after him. Humphrey Nwosu, why not? And I think that not a lot of people stand up for something in this country. And when people stand up for nothing, for something, then they should deserve the honor. A man who stands for nothing falls for everything.
Well, our guest on Constituency Focus this week is Senator Shuaibu Salisu, representing Ogun Central Senatorial District.
What have I done in the last 6 months or so that I've been here? First, from the perspective of my constituency, number one of the first things I did was to do training for our youth. We have a large percentage of Nigerian population that is youth. And therefore, the first thing I did was to do training for 50 selected youth for almost 2 weeks across the 6 local government of Ogun Central Senatorial District. Not only did we train them, we also provided them with tools, particularly laptop. And what makes this project different is that we're not just giving them tools or giving them training, we're doing a follow-up. So they've been given the training, they've been given a laptop, and they've also come back in a few months to showcase what they have been able to do, because it is the continuous process. The second thing in that area as well is that I've been able to attract a few ICT centers. So there's an ICT community center that will be formally unveiling very soon in Abeokuta. And we have also done 2 ICT centers in 2 secondary schools, one in the local government, the other one in the 4 local government, as part of creating opportunities and platforms for the children, particularly secondary school students, to learn about ICT skill. That is a new learning. That's the new knowledge, particularly in an area that the global competitiveness of nations is no longer determined by the amount of minerals under the soil, but by the assets that your citizens carry in their head. Therefore, we are catching them young. We are doing this. But we also need to speak to the issue of sustainability, particularly the issue of climate. Recently, the whole world gathered in Dubai to talk about climate change. But we also recognize that, particularly for our women. So we have done training for about 300 women for them to be aware about the individual responsibility to maintaining a very conducive climate that we can pass on to the next generation. So these 300 women, they were trained on the impact of burning forests, the impact of using firewood instead of gas, and they were also provided with cooking gas materials in order to move them away from activities that could impact negatively on the climate, to things that are sustainable. These are some of the things we have done within the constituency. But on a global scale, on a national scale rather, 65-70% of our population is youth. But we have, even with the best efforts, we can't get employment for all of them in one fell swoop. What do we need to do? Someone has read pharmacy, has read computer science, has read medicine. He has graduated, he has served. There's no job. A few things happen to him. Number one, he doesn't have a productive engagement, so he's idle, he's available. For those of them who might not be strong enough, they're available to do things that are, if you like, against social norms. Number two, they're also losing their skills. You graduate, you don't have the skills. You don't have an opportunity to practice the skills.
Number three, you also don't have a stipend. So their confidence themselves, the dignity of the school, the education they've had, begins to be eroded. So this bill seeks to achieve two things. Number one, if somebody has studied mass communication as an example, and the Minister of Information does not have a permanent employment for him, or the channels of this or of TVC, they can afford to have him on internship. Maybe 3 days a week. And it's based on stipends. What this does is, number one, we will have a national database of people who are looking for employment or are underemployed. As the saying goes, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it.
Well, that's all the time we have, but the National Assembly has adjourned plenary for 4 weeks for Salah and Easter holidays. That's a wrap on the Gavel. Thanks for your time. I'm Terry Ikumi. Bye-bye.